convinced the growing middle class that modern America was in a true golden age. So there's starting to be an improvement in life. You know, we've learned about the robber barons and how much money they had and how corrupt they were. And Mark Twain really writes about that, but also you have the middle class that are actually getting to partake in some of these things. So the Gilded Age is a new lifestyle the middle class Americans adopted during this period. So there was more time and money for leisure. Like I said, we're getting a middle class. They don't work the 12-hour days. These are the management. These are the office jobs that are getting created. These are new businesses that are coming up. And so they have money to spend on things like sports and shopping and magazines. So they're shopping in new ways, right? So more people are able to work for wages that they don't have to use for things like food and shelter. All right, so they have what's called expendable income. And so they're able to take that expendable income and buy things with it. So more products than ever are available because we're starting to produce more in factories. Conspicuous consumerism is where people wanted and bought the many new products. So they have this expendable income and they're starting to buy it just because they want to. No longer are they focusing on, is this a necessity? Do I have to have this? They're starting to be able to say, you know what, this would be nice to have. I have the extra funds to do it. I'm going to go ahead and buy it. All but the poorest were able to participate in this. All right. So we're having goods that are available in all price ranges. So only the very poor are left out of this conspicuous consumerism. So we talked a little bit about the department store a couple days ago. We talked about the Sears and Roebuck catalog that went out because not everybody had a department store nearby, right? So the first department store ever was Macy's, and it was created in New York. It was the largest single store in America. Other department stores that followed were Jordan Marsh, Marshall Fields, and Wanamaker. Those three are out of business now. Macy's is still in business. And John Wanamaker offered the first money-back guarantee. So basically, he was the first guy that said, if you don't like my product, I'll give you your money back. This was never heard of before. Because now they actually have to sell things, like push to sell things, because they have an excess that they need to sell. As the Postmaster General, he also lowered shipping rates for catalogs. Okay, so when you go to mail something, you have different rates for mailing things. So you pay a certain amount if it's a postcard, you pay a certain amount if it's a letter. When you get up into packages, it goes by weight. But they also have things like media mail and they have catalog mail, okay? So all those magazines that you receive, they get mailed for a special rate, and it's cheaper because you're sending a whole bunch at one time. And John Wanamaker was the first guy that said, let's do this. So we have inventions that are improving everyday life. We have things like the telephone and the carpet sweeper. So before the telephone, we were only able to do telegraphs. And you're going to learn in your Shark Tanks how expensive it was to send a telegraph. It was not a cheap thing to do. So people really generally stuck with writing letters. If you lived in the same town, you probably just delivered the letter or had a courier take the letter. But there was no just picking up the phone. Well, now with the Gilded Age, you're starting to see telephones being installed in homes. Granted, they start in the mansions and they gradually work their way down, but they're becoming a convenience that are in households. The carpet sweeper is also a convenience. So ladies, instead of vacuuming, well, and gentlemen, I'm sure gentlemen vacuum as well. Instead of vacuuming your home, you would take the rug out, you'd shake it and beat it out, and then you put it back. Well, now they have a carpet sweeper, so they don't have to take the rugs out anymore and shake all that dirt out. They just vacuum it up. So this is a new thing. So if you remember, at the beginning of this unit, we were talking about Thomas Edison being able to get power out to everybody, right? So here we go. Because he's got power, we're able to have conveniences in our home, like the carpet sweeper. One lady that I want to talk about that did really well at this time period is Madam C.J. Walker. All right, this lady is from Indianapolis, and she is the first female millionaire. Okay, self-made millionaire. So she's an African-American business owner. She was born a slave, and she came up with hair products for African-American women. And so she was able to market it on her own and create her own company and sell her own product, and was the first woman to become a self-made millionaire. White or black, any other ethnicity. She's the very first woman to do this. So she's a really remarkable lady, and she's a neat person to learn from. And she was able to use the power that she got from having funds to be a civil rights activist and a philanthropist as well. A philanthropist, for those of you who don't know, is somebody that is able to donate large amounts of money to good causes. So technology and free enterprise lead to higher standards of living. Okay, so Americans are now starting to measure their success by how much they could buy. How much can you own? The grass is greener on the other side. So-and-so has that, I want it, right? Technological innovations created more demand, and as a result, more jobs. So with more jobs, they're able to earn more money. The cost of living is decreasing because factory manufactured products cost less. Okay, so if you were to buy a bed prior to this, you would have to go to a carpenter and they'd have to build it for you, or you'd have to build it yourself. Well, now that we have these factories, they're building the beds in one location, right? And this is happening for all products in the home. So it's a lot cheaper to live because they're mass producing things. And if they're able to mass produce things efficiently, then they're able to sell them cheaper. Okay, so scientific innovations are creating better sanitation and medical care. So people are living longer, they're healthier, and it also allowed for creation of a middle class. So like I mentioned earlier in this slide, we're starting to see people have a little bit more disposable income. So as a result, we're starting to see a mass culture develop. Okay, so before you didn't have a need to market things like entertainment to the middle class because they really didn't exist and there was nobody to buy it. Well, now there is. So one of the effects of the spread of transportation, communication, and advertising was that Americans all across the country became more and more alike in their consumption patterns. Rich and poor could wear the same clothing styles, although quality of that clothing varied. Household gadgets, toys, and food preferences were often the same from house to house, and this phenomenon was known as mass culture, right? So like everybody's got a TV nowadays, right? It'd be weird if you walked into a house without a television. Most people have a cell phone nowadays. That's mass culture. What is the mass buying? The mass of people buying, right? It's not needed to live on, but what are they all purchasing? Because it creates our culture. Okay. And one of the things that grew during this time is the newspaper industry. So newspapers of the Gilded Age reflected and created mass culture. So whatever gets advertised gets bought, right? So whatever people are talking about in the newspapers gets bought. All right, same thing as today. Whatever you see on Facebook or Instagram, whatever somebody has that you see in media on the TV, you're going to want to buy it, right? So Joseph Pulitzer started the morning paper, The World, in New York. Pulitzer believed that the job of the newspaper was not only to inform people, but also to stir up controversy. So right from the get-go, these newspapers were not necessarily designed to be just news. They were designed to get people talking about things. His papers were sensationalistic, with exposure to politics, corruptions, economics, sports, and illustrations. So the arts reflect characteristics and issues of the time. So authors wrote articles and books exposing harsh realities of the time. So, for example, Stephen Crane exposed the slums in the book Maggie, A Girl of the Streets, and a Red Badge of Courage. Horatio Algier wrote about the morals of hard work, and Edith Wharton and Henry James questioned society's morals. Okay, so these authors are using their pen and their audience to bring awareness to things that are going on around them. Okay, so Edith Wharton and Henry James are like, hey, you know what, the morals of society, they're starting to, decline a little bit. Horatio Algier talks about that you need hard work. And Stephen Crane, he's like, look at what's going on in the slums. We need to be paying attention to this. Okay, so we're starting to see the arts use their talent as their voice. So there was a section in New York that would become the center of the music publishing industry, and that would be the Tin Pan Alley. They provide sheet music for Americans across the country, and Americans are able to enjoy things like jazz, which was created by African Americans and was upbeat and highly rhythmic. So Watermelon Club by Bodwalt J. Lamp is one of the pieces of music that was popular at the time. All right, so you're also seeing a growth in schools. Okay, so we talked about one of the benefits during Reconstruction was the African Americans are going to school. Well, now we're starting to see people need to be more literate to move up. All right, so public education is starting to expand. Grade school became required. So prior to this, there was no school requirements. Now it's required to go to grade school. High school was not required yet, though. But as a result, you're seeing literacy climb. Here's a graph that explains that. So up here at the top, let me grab my pen here. Okay, so this line right here, this shows the whites, and this shows the African Americans, but check this out. 1910, 1920, the African Americans are starting to catch up because schools are becoming more and more important. And as you look at the yellow lines here, you're seeing how literacy rates are growing as well. So you're starting to also see a boom in popular entertainment. Urban areas are becoming centers for new types of entertainment. There's clubs and music halls and sports venues, and they attract large crowds with time and money to spend. All right, so the middle class can start taking vacations. Like all of these things that we take for granted, they're brand new parts of life because people weren't able to purchase or participate in them previous to this. The working class would get away for just a day. And amusement parks, they become a thing. All right, so Coney Island, I think, was the first amusement park. In 1884, LaMarcus Thompson created the world's first roller coaster at Coney Island. You could ride it for 10 cents. He would earn $600 a day. That is 6,000 rides a day. All right, he made bank. And these parks were open to everyone, even though each group would be relegated to a certain area. So they're still segregated. You still had areas that would attract the poor and the rich that were separated, but they were designed so that everybody could go. Audience are starting to flock to outdoor events. Okay, so Buffalo Bill Cody created his Wild West show, and it traveled all over the world, and it helped shape Americans' romantic idea of the American West. So you think about those old Westerns and stuff, those ideas came from Buffalo Bill Cody's shows. You're starting to see religious entertainment spread as well. So you have this Chautauqua circuit, and it's a summer camp and a Methodist Sunday school. All right, so it's designed with religious lectures, and they would transport these tents all over the place so that people could attend them. So they would be tent revivals. All right, so you're starting to see the beginning of your tent revival. And then you see organized sports are starting to attract new fans. So baseball had been around for many years, but now you have the National League formed in 1876, and major cities built stadiums like Boston's Fenway Park. So people are starting to have time to go out and enjoy themselves. All right. Make sure that you review these videos, and good luck on your test on Monday.